Thank you all for being here. Please continue to enjoy the refreshments, adult beverages, and PG-13 variety throughout the program. We rolled out another table as I noticed there was a lot of name tags scribbled in black markers. I figured we better get another table out here just in case. So hopefully we have enough seats for you, and if not, we will get a seat for you very shortly. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here in the Andrew Breitbart Freedom Center at the Heartland Institute for this very special event, the dedication of the Michael Parry Mazur Memorial Library. I am Jim Lakely. I'm the Director of Communications at the Heartland Institute. Let me tell you a little bit about Heartland if you're new to the organization. We are a 32-year-old free market think tank that until about 9 months ago was based in Chicago, and is now based here. We're very proud to be based here in Arlington Heights. Our mission since our founding has been to discover, develop, and promote free market solutions to social and economic problems. In short, to fight for policies that shrink the scope and the power of government, to increase individual liberty, and to encourage prosperity through vibrant and true free markets. A big part of fulfilling that mission is what we're here to dedicate today, and that is our wonderful new library, which you're going to learn more about here in just a few minutes. Heartland covers key aspects of domestic policy through our 5 centers: the Center on Budgets and Taxes, the Center for School Transformation, a center we call Consumers for Healthcare Choices, our Center on Climate and Environmental Policy, for which we're known probably most around the world, and our newest center, for which we hope to be known as well, the Center for Constitutional Reform, in which we're working with allies across the country to advance the idea of amending the Constitution using Article 5. We are amazingly effective in our mission. All you have to do is ask our opponents in the arenas of ideas. Google us if you dare, although I wouldn't believe about 97% of what you read. As they say, though, if you're not catching flack, you're not over the target, and that's where Heartland always is. If you like what you see tonight, whether here in person or watching this video online, I encourage you to look around at heartland.org. Check out our blog, Somewhat Reasonable. Check out our daily podcast on iTunes, which gets about 100,000 downloads every month. Check out our YouTube page, where you can see videos of this presentation and the other events that we have here regularly, and I hope that you'll see a lot of stuff that is to your liking. And if you're a more bookish sort, well, this presentation you're going to see tonight is for you. Everyone here at Heartland had a hand in the creation of the Michael Parry Mazur Memorial Library, including the people we thanked in the slideshow that I hope you looked at that was running as you arrived. But no one has been more vital to the creation of this fabulous resource here in this office for the cause of liberty than some of the people who will be making brief remarks tonight. To get the program started will be Joseph Bast. He is the president of the Heartland Institute and is the author or co-author of 12 books, including Eco-Sanity, A Common Sense Guide to Environmentalism, Education and Capitalism, and Rewards, How to Use Rewards to Help Children Learn. He's the founding publisher of 4 monthly public policy newspapers that the Heartland Institute currently sends to all national, state, and local elected officials, which is an extremely influential and effective way to affect public policy. His writing has appeared in many publications, including the Wall Street Journal, Investor's Business Daily, the Washington Post, and USA Today. And he loves books in an obsessive but entirely healthy manner. Please welcome Joseph Bast.
Thank you, Jim. Certainly obsessive, maybe not so healthy. All right, well, yeah, thank you very much, Jim. Today, we are here to officially open the library at the Heartland Institute and to dedicate it to the memory of Michael Parry Mazur. We're honored also to be joined by several other people who helped make this possible. The Honorable Thomas Hayes, the mayor of Arlington Heights, is with us. Dr. John Mazur, the brother of Michael Parry Mazur, is here. Joe Davis, a professional librarian who's been helping us put the library together. And Diane Carol Bast, often mistaken to be my daughter, but actually my spouse. Heartland's senior editor. She spent a lot of time on the library, and she helped create the digital catalog for the library. Each of these people are going to talk briefly when I'm finished up here. The library right now contains almost 10,000 volumes on economics, literature, history, philosophy, political science, socialism, and Soviet studies, and a bunch of topics in between. I believe it is the largest collection in the Midwest of books that focus on liberty, the history of freedom, the challenges to freedom, and free enterprise. We call that the literature of liberty. This library is dedicated to preserving, presenting, and making available to the general public the literature of liberty. These books were donated by over a dozen people. Their names appeared on the screen that was sliding through here earlier. They're available on the internet. We're deeply grateful to the people who donated so many books to this project. Jim Johnston, one of the founding members of the board of directors, is here. Jim donated his personal library, a huge collection of academic journals, which is just on the other side of the two doors in this direction. And we're hopeful for many more private collections of books to be donated in the coming months and years. We've also been the recipients of books as they were published by the Cato Institute, Heritage Foundation, Fraser Institute, Independent Institute, all these other organizations, think tanks that we've been colleagues with over the last 32 years. So we have extensive collections of books that were published by all these other organizations. Now for me personally, this is a big deal because out of those 10,000 books, about 7,000 of them were mine. And I never thought I would give them up. Some of you have probably seen the TV shows about hoarders. I think book collecting has a lot in common with hoarding. And I love books. And from a very young age, my first year in college, I was trading food for books. I would literally go without eating and buy used books. And I was courting Diane at the time. And I would send Diane these letters saying, college is great. Here's a list of the books I bought at the used bookstore. And I would list the retail price and how much I paid for them. And page after page of these books that I was buying. And I couldn't believe that you could buy books that were worth $30, according to the back cover, for only $7 in the used bookstore. And so I was buying all these books. I absolutely loved them. Many of us, I think, in this room, if you're interested in free market ideas and if you're an advocate of especially libertarianism, but even conservatism, you're used to being a little bit contrary to trends and public opinion and popularity. So you're autodidactic. You have no choice but to teach yourself. You start reading things and books. You come to your own conclusions. That was my situation back in the 1970s. Books become extremely important to somebody who is autodidactic. This is your insight into truth. Joe Davis is going to talk a little bit more about this because I think he and I connect at a almost spiritual level on the importance of books, and he can talk to you about just how important it is. So for me, it's a big deal. I never thought I would give away my books. But I gave them to the Heartland Institute. I stand before you to bear witness. You can give away your books and not die. I thought there was some doubt in my mind that this would happen. So if you have books at home, if you have friends, relatives, neighbors who have books, urge them to contribute them to the Heartland Institute. Don't wait too late. If you have a heart attack, your books are going to go into a dumpster, okay? Your kids don't like your books. They're not going to keep your books. So contribute them to the Heartland Institute. We will put them on shelves. They won't stay in boxes in the basement here. Don't give them to a university. They're going to get lost in a mile of bookcases. Okay? Give them to the Heartland Institute. We will put them on shelves. We will make sure that people have access to them. Not just college students, not just academics. Okay? People from around the world can come here and use these books. So for the Heartland Institute, this is also hugely important. Okay, the creation of this library ought to send a message to everybody that we will not allow the literature of liberty to disappear. We will not allow it to be edited away. You know, the guys who run Google and Wikipedia and Facebook, they think they have all this power. They can control people's access to information. And to to a large extent, that's true. University professors think they have lots of power. They can keep their students from discovering various types of books. Judge? But if you have the physical book, if you have the book in a physical library, people will be able to find that. And we're going to make sure that these books are kept available to the public in a safe place, in a place where people can come together and study them and look at them. Ronald Reagan famously said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to our children for them to do the same." Okay, freedom is only one generation thick. It really is up to us. You read these newspaper articles about college kids voting for Bernie Sanders. These kids have no concept of what the purpose of government is. They have very little idea what the Constitution is about, how an economy works, what debt might mean, whether or not entitlement programs are sustainable. These are all problems that are caused by the high schools and by the colleges. It's up to their parents and their aunts and uncles and their grandparents to set them straight, to educate them in a way that the colleges and the high schools aren't doing it anymore. So all the more reason why a library that's dedicated to freedom is more important today than ever before, because these ideas are not being taught in the schools. Now, a common objection to creating a library like this is, well, you can just Google it. It's all online. Joe, all these books are online. Why are you bothering to collect them? If I want a copy of Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, it's online. Okay. Well, there's a couple of problems with that. You know, the first is there is so much online now that it's hard to find the good stuff. So you can Google free markets, you can Google global warming, you can even Google Ludwig von Mises, and you're going to get millions of hits. And you're going to go through page after page of these hits. And there's going to be video clips, and there's going to be blog posts, and little letters, and now tweets, and lots of stuff against him, and some stuff in favor of him, and precious little by him, frankly. But you might find stuff by Ludwig von Mises, and you might go to that site. Now you've got to plod through enormous amounts of literature that were written by him available on a computer screen. Why not instead go to a physical library, to a section titled Libertarianism or Economics? And there it is. His complete works are on the shelf right in front of you. You pull a volume off titled Socialism, open it up to any page, any page. That book is magnificent. It's beautifully written. It could have been written yesterday about socialism. How many kids in high school or college will ever read socialism? They're not going to see it. We've got 6, 7 copies on the shelf here. You know, it's a great book. And similarly, Friedrich Hayek, you know, one of the really great minds in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, he essentially saved free enterprise from the avalanche of socialism that was taking place in the country. He wrote a brilliant book, The Road to Serfdom. Open that book to any page, and it's just brilliant stuff. Any page. You can open it up and start reading it out loud, and people are going to say, wow, that's an interesting idea. That's well read. That's how talented a writer this guy is. But his stuff is completely buried and lost behind a fog of blog posts and op-eds and essays and stuff by socialists and stuff by populists and stuff by nationalists and economists who don't understand what he was talking about. So you got to look at the real thing. And the best way to look at the real thing is to have that physical book in your hand and know what it's about. And once you figured out Hayek, wouldn't it be nice to see on the very next book is by David Henderson, a great economist. You know, he's written a whole bunch of great books. And you're going to say, wow, this guy actually quotes Hayek. And there's actually an intellectual connection between these two. And you start connecting the dots, and you see great literature emerging in front of you. Mortimer Adler called it the great conversation. Right? When you read these books, you are participating in a conversation with the greatest minds in the history of man. Okay? And nobody can look in on that conversation. That's a private conversation that you're having with Aristotle and with Plato and with Friedrich Hayek himself. Nobody can censor it. Nobody can judge you for the conclusions that you're drawing from it. It's the beauty of reading a book. Now, on the internet, you can read stuff. Okay, fine. On the internet, they can also delete stuff. They can hide the search results. They can alter documents online. Take it, revise it, put it back up. The Soviets were experts at that, right? They would go through the history archives and delete pictures of guys who are now unpopular, you know, and they just cut them out of the pictures. And they go down the memory hole. You remember George Orwell's 1984, where the, what was it called? The Ministry of Truth. The Ministry of Truth, yeah. Great control over the vocabulary. The Ministry of Truth would go through and just delete stuff and hide stuff and revise stuff, and nobody would know the difference. Well, printed books make that harder to do. At the risk of digressing, has anybody seen the movie Interstellar? Yeah, it's a relatively recent movie. It's not a real great movie. If you're a sci-fi fan, you're going to like it, but it moves pretty fast. There's this amazing scene early on where the father is meeting with the principal of the school and the guidance counselor for his high school son. And the guidance counselor says, Mr. Smith, you got to stop trying to educate your kid at home with these old textbooks, because these old textbooks say that America put a man on the moon. And we all now know that that's false, that that was just a staged thing, and that was done as part of the Cold War in order to trick the Soviet Union into spending lots of money trying to get to the moon. And the father is like, well, no, actually, I was a test pilot for NASA, and I know darn well that we went to the moon. So the counselor is trying to rewrite history to this guy, thinking that he's a rube, and in fact, he's an engineer and a pilot. They can change history, and books are the way that we prevent that from happening. All right. And finally, a library provides something that the internet can't, and that is a physical place where people can come together, look at these books, discuss them in the privacy and the safety of a physical space. Okay, nobody's looking over your shoulder. There was a great book, Virginia Woolf. You remember A Room of Your Own? A Room of One's Own. That was the title of it, 1929. And she was making the point that the reason women aren't more prominent in literature as the authors of great books of literature is they didn't have rooms of their own where they could go and read these books and come up with their own ideas and do their creative writing. That it was a male-dominated society, and that men didn't give their women the privacy, the seclusion, the place to stand. It's a great image because we talk about how important economic rights are in a free society. You can't have freedom of religion if churches aren't allowed to have their own buildings, their own property, their own right to control who has access to those buildings. You can't have freedom of speech unless publishers are able to own the printing presses. So freedom of property is at the root of all the other freedoms. Well, when it comes to libraries, freedom to have a private library like this, absolutely essential to human freedom. Okay? They can't come here and take our books. Okay, they may try. And you can donate guns to us, maybe to prevent that from happening. But this is essentially a fortress of freedom. This is a place where the books are still present. And without that kind of a place, a safe place, a quiet place where people can actually read books and work together, it's not going to happen. All right, in conclusion, building a library is only part of what it takes to protect freedom and restore freedom. We know that. You got to get involved in politics. You got to teach your kids. You got to be an educator. You got to write books. You got to become a historian. You got to be an example in your personal life. There's all these things that all of us need to do if we're going to take back our country and restore freedom. But building a library is an important part of that, and it shouldn't be overlooked. And we are absolutely thrilled that the Heartland Institute is in a position where we can do that. We want this library to grow. We want to market it extensively to college students and academics and policymakers and concerned citizens. We want a steady flow of people in and out of this building to take advantage of this library. In order for that to happen, we need the help of everybody in this room. You need to promote the existence of this library to your friends and neighbors and relatives. You need to donate your books to us. You need to borrow or buy books from us and then give them to friends and circulate these books. You got to get people back into the habit of relying on books, reading books, and learning from books. Because if we lose that, we lose freedom. So thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your support. And it is my honor right now to introduce to you the mayor of Arlington Heights, Tom Hayes, Mayor Hayes did us the huge favor of cutting the ribbon when we were first here. Coming from Chicago, where there isn't a single politician in that town who appreciated us or liked us or would even return a phone call, to coming out here to Arlington Heights, where the mayor himself comes to our open house and cuts the ribbon, was just a wonderful thing. It's a great welcome. We really admire this guy, and we're glad to be in your town. So please welcome the mayor.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, Joe, and especially to all of you here at the Heartland Institute for your invitation to be here on this very special occasion. As the mayor of the Village of Arlington Heights, I am very proud to have the Heartland Institute in our great community. I am very proud of a community that has something for everyone. We have a lot to offer our residents and our workers. And one thing we didn't have before last August was a think tank. And so I'm very happy to have now a think tank within our village board and all that it can provide to our community and our surrounding residents and employees. So again, thank you for the invitation to be here today. The concepts of liberty and freedom are very important to the people of the Village of Arlington Heights, and the Heartland Institute's mission of discovering, developing, and promoting free market solutions to social and economic problems is something that I think our residents and employees can support as well. So as a conservative mayor myself and the mayor of a community I think that for the most part is very conservative, I'm very proud to have the Heartland Institute here in our village, and can assure you that we support the values that the Heartland Institute supports as well. I'm very happy to be here on this occasion of opening this new library and all that it means for our residents and our surrounding neighbors. It's a great resource, again, that our residents can avail themselves of. As Joe indicated, it's something that's not available online, and so we're, again, very happy for the services that it can provide to our residents and our employees that can come here and get resources that they're not able to get elsewhere. So again, that's again something that our community that can offer that other communities don't. So again, thank you for the invitation to be here today. Thanks to the Heartland Institute for all that you do for our community and the surrounding communities. And we wish you many, many years of great success here in the Village of Arlington Heights, especially with the addition of the new Michael Parry Mazur Library. And thank you to the Mazur family for their contributions to this effort as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. That was terrific. So our next speaker is a beekeeper, and he produces honey in his retirement. It is Dr. John Mazur. John is the brother of the late Michael Parry Mazur. John is going to talk a little bit, I hope, about his brother, and then about his own love for freedom and what he hopes to achieve by having the family provide support for this library. We're really pleased to be able to name this library in the honor of the Parry Mazur family. The financial support that John provided really made possible the bookcases that you see here, and a lot of the books and a lot of the work that's gone into this. So please welcome Dr. John Mazur.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you all for coming here tonight. Beekeeping is a wonderful hobby. I recommend it. I have 800,000 pets in my backyard. Unfortunately, I don't know what the crop is going to be like this year. It seems like the sun disappeared. It would be nice if the CO2 level would go up a little so we could get some warming, and the flowers would come out. And I'm sure the bees would do better if Al Gore were actually right. So I thought a long time about who should I name this library after. I gave the money, and then I said, oh, I've got naming rights. And I thought, what are the criteria to name a library after? Especially an economics library, a libertarian library. And so I did think, well, let's see. My brother was an economist, and I found a libertarian paper. But anyway, I thought it was important that, first of all, that the person be a nice person, that he be inspirational, that he be libertarian, and that his life should teach us something. So I can attest that he was a nice person. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota as the youngest of 4 boys. You can imagine being the youngest of 4 boys. They would tie me up in the basement and leave the house and all of that. So Brother Michael did the least tying up of me in the basement. He almost never knocked me down or threw me around. He actually occasionally paid attention to me. Brother Michael was inspirational. Imagine if you're in Fargo, North Dakota in 1959, and your brother comes home from college and his book's got writing that goes backwards and it's squiggly, and he talks like he's clearing his throat a lot. He was studying Arabic. Why would anybody in 1959, before all of the Middle East stuff, study Arabic and economics? Well, that was his chosen field, so he was special. He went to Northwestern, and he graduated top in the university. Not just top in the School of Economics or something. He had to do it in the whole university. So that was great for him, but my mother never looked at me the same. I couldn't get grades like he could. So he was very academic. He eventually went to Harvard and MIT and all of that, and he did teach economics. He spent several years in the Middle East, and he traveled around the world 3 times. He went to work for Jimmy Carter and eventually Ronald Reagan. He tells the story of being an economist in the Office of Management and Budget, and he heard a pounding on the front door in the office, and he goes out and it says White House. You remember that Jimmy Carter said he was going to decrease the budget by laying off 10% of the federal workers? Well, my brother was listed as being laid off, but all they did was change the name on the door. That was the only thing. So I was never sure about my brother being a libertarian until I actually Googled looking for his book. I think I actually cornered the market on his book, and there are multiple copies available here. Economic Growth and Development in Jordan. I've tried to read it. I'm sorry, I can't. I've never been able to finish it. But the other thing I found was an article that he must have done while he was in the White House on the price support system that they have in California. The most recent, and this was published in Regulation Magazine, which I guess is an arm of the Cato Institute. So that makes him a libertarian in my mind. So anyway, he would argue for elimination of these price supports that they had. And he would be happy to see that Horn versus the U.S. Department of Agriculture went to the Supreme Court, and this farmer who was growing raisins actually won in the Supreme Court. So the farmers can now choose not to be in these programs. My brother sadly got cancer at age 39. This made him quite sick. He had chronic pain. He lost his hearing. In spite of that, he still worked for the White House. He traveled to the Middle East again and got to see his friends, and he made another circumnavigation of the earth. To show you his character, he was telling me about the thing that was perhaps the most sad in his life, was not that he got the cancer, but that he won, he was a jogger, and he would do the Boston Marathon. He had done the Boston Marathon multiple times. When he was 39, he ran in the Boston Marathon, and his time was considerably less than any of the 40 and older participants. So he was a shoo-in to win the Boston Marathon, but he got sick at that time. So the timing to him was very frustrating. So in short, I think that Michael Parry Mazur should be inspirational for us. He was an economist. He was libertarian. He was talented. But more than that, he was a nice guy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And nobody in this room probably knows this, but John joined us in Paris for Heartland Institute's trip to be there for COP21. So we were happy to have him there for his support. And did you have fun?
Oh, lots of fun.
Did you get mad?
Oh, I enjoyed the protesters.
So did we. So did we. All right. Our next speaker is Joseph Davis. Mentioned earlier, he is a professional librarian who donated many hours to us to help organize this library, and he's prepared a few remarks. So please welcome Joe Davis.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you all for coming today. As Jim said, I'm a librarian. For the past 25 years, I have worked in public and academic libraries, including the Algonquin Area Public Library and Roosevelt University. I've always been an avid reader, and the history, philosophy, and morality of capitalism have always been major interests of mine. It's been a great pleasure to work on a library the past 2 months. Especially want to thank the members of the Heartland Institute staff who have donated a lot of time helping to move bookcases and organize the collection and shelve the books. To the librarians here today, let me specifically point out a few things. A library is not organized via the Library of Congress or Dewey Decimal Systems as of yet. There is a reading area by a set of windows that is amenable to group or quiet study. So if you have only seen this portion, walk through the French doors and get a sense of the rest there. It's really nice. Our book catalog uses a product from the Netherlands called CLZ Book Collector. Look it up. It's pretty neat. Sort of a mini OCLC, if you will. The hope is that the collection will soon circulate in a manner that will preserve its integrity. The library contains books rarely seen in other libraries or that you would find in bookstores because they are older, out of print, or simply no longer fashionable. For instance, there are books about the fall of the Soviet Union or the great debates over socialist planning that took place in the 1930s and 1940s. And they're important as today as they were when they were originally published. For me, a book symbolizes freedom in many ways. Books are like individuals. For each has an ISBN, which defines it in contrast to all other books. Authors and publishers and bookstores, they're all private actors competing in a free market for attention and influence. There's no central thinker, editor, or publisher. It's a spontaneous order. And reading a book is like having a private conversation with the author. No one else can listen and interrupt or stop the conversation. It's you and the book. Americans privately own millions of books, and like guns, they represent a decentralized defense of liberty from any threats, foreign or domestic, that might emerge. I like to say guns, books, and gold. Three that remain. The greatest of these are books. Private libraries are the bulwarks of freedom. And as President Dwight D. Eisenhower wrote in a letter to the American Library Association annual conference in 1953, he said, "The libraries of America are and must ever remain the home of free inquiring minds. To them, our citizens of all ages and races, all creeds and political persuasions, must ever be able to turn with clear confidences that there they can freely seek the whole truth, unwarped by fashion and uncompromised by expediency." That's a quote. The Michael Parry Mazur Library is especially important and valuable to liberty. By putting books about liberty in one place in a safe, quiet environment, their message is not diluted, hidden, or compromised by other messages. It's been said that you become the books that you read, and good books produce good citizens, and the country needs good citizens, now as always. The Michael Parry Mazur Library starts here today. It will be here tomorrow, 10 years from now, hopefully 20, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, ensuring that free men, women, people, I like the term mensch, that free people, free minds, do not perish from the earth. So thank you for your role in making all this possible. And
Thanks, Joe. You know, Joe mentioned that we have a socialism and Soviet studies section. I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh in 1992, and I took some Russian culture courses and Russian literature courses, and you know, I'm kind of like Handi Rice. She majored in Soviet studies and was completely irrelevant, you know. But certainly after before I graduated, the Berlin Wall fell. But if you look through the socialism and Soviet studies section, it's really fascinating. I mean, we have in there Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago. He writes here on the front, "For years I have, with reluctant heart, withheld from publication this already completed book. My obligation to those still living outweighed my obligations to the dead. But now that state security has seized this book anyway, I have no alternative but to publish it immediately." And so it was. And this is a 1973 edition of this book. And there really is that's my favorite section of the entire library. I mean, you could spend a year just reading and studying that section alone, and who knows, it may come in handy these days. Our next speaker is Diane Carroll Bast. She's the Heartland Institute's executive director and the lovely wife of our president, Joseph Bast, and she created the digital catalog of this library. And if you go to the library page at the Heartland Institute, which you can get to right from the front page, you'll see a link right there, and you click on it, and it shows a fantastically searchable database of all of the books that we have here, almost 10,000 in this library. It's really amazing. You can just search by Hayek, you can search by Friedman. It's fantastic. She also spent many hours overseeing the acquisition, coding, and the shelving of these books, both here at Heartland and over the years in the Bast's homes, as they tried to find room for an ever-growing private library. You know, they have a problem, but they're dealing with it, and this library is part of it, and we're very happy for it. Please welcome Diane Bast.
Thanks, Jim. I should be honest about this. I almost never helped Joe in the library at home. That was sort of his kind of it was his personal space, and he pretty much did all the work down there by himself. I did definitely help here. I feel a little bit bad because my remarks don't have the same sort of philosophical, kind of visionary tone that Joe Bast and Joe Davis and John Mazur had. I'm more the detail-oriented person at Heartland, so I'm relegated to giving you a few details about the library. As others have mentioned, it's a research library. It's different from your public library. We don't have the Dewey Decimal System here. The books are sorted into 16 categories: biography, economics, environment issues, libertarianism, philosophy, public policy, and several other topics. But that's the way we've got it organized, is by topic. Each bookcase has a topic identifier tag. Many of you, those of you who walked around the library, know what these look like already. The beginning of each topic has a green sticker on it. That's where the topic starts. All of the topics, the first couple of shelves will be indexes, abstracts, sort of collections, maybe dictionaries, anthologies. Those are on the first shelves. And then everything after that is simply organized alphabetical by the last name of the author or the editor. Many of the important authors in the literature of liberty were polyglots. They wrote on a wide range of topics. We tried very hard to kind of keep the main part of their collection, their main collected works, in the topic that they were kind of most known for. So Milton Friedman, for example, his collected works will be in the economics section. Even though there might be some in education, there are going to be some in libertarianism because he also wrote on those topics, but we tried to keep him more or less grouped so that you can kind of see the entire collection. Jim recently tweeted a photograph of the Friedrich Hayek page or bookshelf in the library so that all of his collected works are in one place. And he's actually going to do a bookshelf of the week tweet for a while at Heartland so that we can kind of generate some interest in the library and show people what we have in the collection. A catalog of books is available online, as Jim mentioned. That is a good way for you to pinpoint where we might have located a particular book. If you have a specific book that you're looking for, look it up in the online catalog and you'll see where it's where we've got it shelved. It may not necessarily be where you would have shelved it, but you'll be able to find things. We also will have staff here available to help. The library will be open to the public from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. There's no admission fee, but we would appreciate a phone call in advance so that we know for sure that there's Heartland staff here to help you out. The library is within a 30-minute drive of something like 20 colleges and universities in this area. So we expect to have interns here. We expect to have students, professors, using the library on a regular basis. So if you come to use the library, there might actually be some professor from Harper College here doing some research as well, and you can actually engage in conversations with those people as well as with the books that are in the library. Right now, the book is not, generally speaking, a lending library. We kind of need to get our feet under ourselves yet on this whole library thing. So we will make books available, for example, to Heartland's 260 policy advisors. They're academics and professional economists. If we have extra books on a topic, we will let them borrow the books. There are also books available, our overstock on that shelf over there, that are available for purchase for $1 by Heartland donors, by students with valid IDs, by members of our legislative forum. If you are not currently a member and you think you might like to buy a book for $1, there are forms on the table that will allow you to become a member. As Joe mentioned, you're welcome, Gwen. As Joe mentioned, we encourage donations, we welcome donations. There are some formal guidelines on Heartland's website at heartland.org/library, information on how you can donate your books to us. We would really appreciate that. You may not believe it looking at the collection now, but we figure we have room here probably for another 10,000 books. So donate away. Some real general guidelines. Heartland will pay for the cost of shipping your books. So don't worry about that. You and I can talk. And we'll make those arrangements. You may want to have, if you've got a big collection and they're heavy books, contract with a mover to do that. 2 men in a truck is great. Young men carrying boxes of books up staircases, and all you have to do is watch them do it. It's fantastic. Let us know if you're making those kinds of arrangements, and we'll cover those costs. You do not need to produce for us a list of the books that you're donating. As Joe Davis mentioned, we have software. We use a barcode reader. We can produce those lists for you. This software will actually provide the list prices of the books, so we can provide for you a list of the books that you've donated with their list prices, something that you can use if you want to take a tax deduction. We especially would like books on American history, economics, education, environmentalism, history of social thought, philosophy, politics, public policy, sociology, Soviet studies, world history. We really don't need fiction, poetry, religion, foreign languages, old reference books like dictionaries or encyclopedias, computer manuals. Please, no computer manuals. I actually have a personal collection of those, but we don't need those. And cookbooks. I actually have a personal collection of those too, and they don't get used, so what's the point? We do appreciate donations of academic journals if they are journals that we don't currently have, and the journals are being kept in a different part of the library. I can certainly walk you over there and show you where they are if you're interested. We're not really looking for popular magazines like National Geographic or movement journals like American Spectator or Reason. We have copies of those, and all of those things are really pretty conveniently available online. Don't worry that what you're donating to us might be a dupe. We fully expect that. We want that. We're keeping multiple copies of books on the shelves, and then, as I mentioned, the Buck a Book shelf. We want to be able to sell them, donate them. We'll give them to researchers who might be working on a particular topic. So we're perfectly happy having duplications of books. First editions, signed copies, otherwise rare and valuable books. If you're going to donate those kinds of things to us, we would love it. We will keep them safe. We will keep them secure. Please, if you're donating a lot of books to us, keep those separate so that they don't just kind of immediately get merged into the collection. I mentioned to someone else earlier tonight, if you're the sort of person who highlights books, writes a lot of stuff in the books, please give us those books, because that's really the fascinating stuff. Sometimes it's fun just to read what other people thought about this particular thing. So don't feel like, I mean, the book should have all their pages in them, please. But if they have notes in it, that's fantastic. We're not necessarily looking for books that are in sort of pristine condition. We love evidence that they've been used. We are planning to create a wish list that will be part of the online catalog. So books that we don't have that we wish we had. Joe has something like a 25-page wish list. It's not just a list of books. It actually has very lengthy descriptions of those books and why he wants them. So, so we plan to put that sort of thing online as well. And then finally, if you are interested in hearing about future events in the library or news about changes to the collection, we're going to start an email list, so please be sure to provide your email list. There are forms titled Join Us on your table. If you will fill those out, provide us your email address, maybe just write, interested in library or something like that on that. We'll make sure to keep you in the loop with other things that we're doing in our fantastic new Michael Parry Mazur Library. We are so thankful to the Mazur family for making this possible. You can tell how excited Joe is. I'm pretty excited as well. Thanks very much.